There's a story about St. Teresa of Avila that comes in many versions, but the punchline is always the same. The basic story is always the same. Teresa is traveling. Sometimes she's on horseback in some versions, and sometimes she's in a carriage. And one way or another, she tips over and ends up in a huge mud puddle. She's there in all her habit, and she's soaking wet, covered with mud. And she looks up to heaven and says, "Well, Jesus, if this is how you treat your friends, no wonder you have so few of them." I think we've all been there. And I think today's gospel places us in that space. This is a gospel that hits middle-class America squarely. There are moments when we hear a reading about someone caught in a sexual sin, or a corrupt leader, or a greedy thief taking money from the poor, and we sit back and think, yeah, those people better listen. They're going to get theirs. But today's gospel, this one should all make us squirm a bit. We who struggle to do what is right, we who work hard, we who try to provide for our families, we who get to church all the time, this gospel's about us. The man in the parable did everything right. He played by the rules. He followed solid financial advice, worked hard his whole life, and made some smart financial choices. Grain was a good investment, and he did so well that he needed to build more storage, or in today's terms, he invested wisely. He wasn't relying on the government for aid. He had good health insurance, more than enough for his family, and likely no scandals. Just a hard-working, responsible man. And yet, Jesus calls him a fool. Those of us who live comfortably with many good things and have played by the rules might be right there with Teresa of Avila, realizing Jesus might be calling us foolish. We might echo what Jesus is calling us. We might echo what she is calling us to do and put our relationships with wealth in proper perspective. Pope Francis once said, "I've never seen a hearse with a trailer hitch." We can't take it with us. This gospel isn't a condemnation of wealth or planning for the future. It's a challenge to us all, especially those of us who live comfortably, to examine our relationship with the material world. What place do we put wealth, possessions, and status? What place do all those things hold in our hearts? It's not saying that wealth is bad or providing for our families is wrong. Jesus had wealthy friends. Nicodemus, Zacchaeus, Joseph of Arimathea, and most likely Mary, Martha, and Lazarus were well off. But through their encounters with Jesus, they reoriented their values. They saw that while wealth could serve a purpose, it's not the ultimate purpose. Family, friendship, compassion, generosity, these are the things of God. Seeing others as beloved children of God, made in God's image, this is the work of the kingdom. This is where we're to put our priorities. Look at the landowner in Jesus' story. He never speaks to anyone but himself. Listen to the words he uses. "What shall I do? For I have no place to store my crops. I will do this. I will pull down my barns and build bigger ones. And there I will store my grain and my goods." Then he says to his soul, relax, eat, drink, and be merry. Notice there's no gratitude, no acknowledgement of the blessings he's been given, no mention of family or those in need. He's wrapped up entirely in himself. And we all know that makes for a very small life. When I lived in New York, there was a professor at the university where I worked who was extremely wealthy. His name was often seen on the list of the richest people in New York, often above Donald Trump. He was regularly invited to the White House, and yet he was one of the most generous people I've ever met. He supported nearly every charitable cause on Long Island. I would often take students to Mexico to build homes, and before we went, he'd call and ask, Ted, do you have everything you need? One year I said, well, the cost of the vans has gone up. We're going to have to stretch our budget. A few hours later, he pulled up in his old beat-up station wagon and handed me a crumpled check. This should cover the cost of the vans, the gas, and leave something extra for a good meal when the work is done. The kids have told me that this trip changes their lives. Every December, he came to our Christmas party, which included students, their families, if they could make it, and faculty. One year I gave him the Fezziwig Award, named for the joyful employer in Dickens' Christmas Carol. Scrooge is reflecting on Fezziwig, and he says to the ghost of Christmas past, he has the power to render us happy or unhappy, to make our service light or burdensome, a pleasure or a toil. The happiness he gives us is quite as great as if it cost a fortune. Fezziwig valued joy and happiness more than he valued money. That was this professor. He didn't just share his wealth, he shared joy. He wasn't about I, but about we, us, others. One day we were having lunch and he joked, well, some of your students are calling me Professor Fezziwig. Not a bad reputation to have. And he and his wife would often come to our Sunday evening student mass. And so the students saw them not just as rich or generous, but also a man of deep faith. I've often prayed that the students who might someday become wealthy would model themselves after him. Jesus, too, enjoyed the good things, meals with friends, celebrations, even a home by the Sea of Galilee. He welcomed others into it. When the disciples asked, where do you live? He said, come and see. And they probably spent that afternoon at a beach house. We've heard that he gathered them into the house and explained parables. He enjoyed weddings and gatherings so much that he was accused of being a drunkard and a glutton. But his joy and his security came not from the house or the wealth, but from the one who called him beloved. Jesus' security, joy, and life came from that love. And his mission was to remind that the forgotten, the poor, and the wounded, that they too are beloved, that we are beloved. The rich man in the parable is called a fool because he thinks his wealth can secure his life. He's a fool because when God calls him, he's utterly alone. But here's good news. We are not only loved by God, we are cherished by God. Jesus knew that he was not only loved, but cherished. And cherished means we are deeply valued and held dear. I may love ice cream, but I cherish the old photos of my parents. I cherish a book from a dear friend, the laughter of loved ones, and the friendship that that we have walked, the friends who have walked with me through life. That's how God sees us, not just loved, but cherished. And that truth, if we can get in touch with it, brings joy and deep security. It takes time to realize this. Time in quiet prayer. Time watching a sunset or glimpsing a shooting star. Time bouncing a child on your knee. Time sitting with a grieving friend not knowing what to say. Just sharing the moment of connection. Sharing love. These are the times that we reunite with God. These are the riches that last beyond the grave. The rich landowner never says, I'll invite others to share in this. He never thinks of storing grain for his neighbors. He never thinks, I'll share some with those who have none if a famine strikes. And when God calls him, he has no connections, just barns. The truth is, when we focus only on material things, we're risking on losing everything, even before we die. A former student of mine became a successful lawyer in New York. He has a beautiful wife, 4 great kids, I baptized all 4, and 2 lovely homes. They wanted for nothing, but he got into day trading. And who couldn't use a bit more money, he thought. And he took more and more risks. He began to lose money more, and even lost millions. He may lose his family, his homes, and the future he dreamed of. He told me, what's wrong with me? I had everything. I didn't need anything. Why did I want more? He had fallen into the American trap that says, having gives us meaning. It does not. It just makes us have to rent more storage space. In today's culture, it's easy to get caught up in this. We no longer are called citizens. We're called consumers. Every scroll through your phone brings 5 new ads. It's the modern way of coveting. And if we're not careful, we stop believing our value is in what we own. But if it all disappears, then what? In the play Da by Hugh Leonard, a man named Charlie is dealing with the death of his father. The play opens with Charlie burning papers from his dad's estate, muttering, "That will be the end of you." But then his father's ghost walks through the door, and the rest of the play is there back and forth through memories, and Charlie coming to terms with who his father was in his life. In one scene, Charlie remembers his first job and his boss, Mr. Drum, a successful businessman, but he was cold and joyless. And Drum one time calls Charlie aside, and he wants to pass on a bit of wisdom. If there's one piece of wisdom I've learned in my life, it's this. In a public restroom, incoming traffic has the right of way over outgoing traffic. Not much to take with you after 68 years, is it, Charlie? He had wealth, but not much to show for it. Jesus invites us to invest in what lasts, to trust in God's love for us, to surround ourselves with people who reflect that love, to become people who offer it to others, to marvel at creation, to stand present with others in suffering, and to serve those the world forgets. In God's eyes, these are the things that makes truly a rich life. Jesus doesn't want us to come to an end with nothing to show for our time here. So what are you storing up? Will it last beyond the grave? Store up things that truly last, we're told, and then watch how big your life becomes.
Don't forget to follow St. Patrick's on Facebook or subscribe on YouTube. And please join us for any of our live stream masses this weekend. Details are below in the description. God bless you. Like burning incense, O Lord, let my prayer rise up to you. Like burning incense, O Lord, let my prayer rise up to